Welcome to Ask the Consul, and of course we have two consular officers and another staff member here. Yes, we have consular officers Brian Jandorf. Got it right? Hey, good morning, Brian. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
This is not your first time.
No, my second time.
You start to work with this place now. Good to have you again. And we also have Andrew Chira.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, good to have you. Hey, okay, gentlemen, what's happening now? Good to have you back again. Now, we want to remind our listeners that later on in the program they can call. You have your questions about U.S. Embassy information, whether it's visa or immigration matters, give us a call. Best to call now. Don't go and ask your neighbor. No, your neighbor is not in the business. No. You call. We have persons right here from the U.S. Embassy. And if you're at home and you have a friend, a relative overseas, why not give them a call now? Tell them they must listen to this program, and they can listen to this program on the internet. Just go to this address, nationwideradiojm.com. And if you go on my Facebook page, you'll see a link where you can download the application for your iPhone. Yes, so you can listen to the program on your iPhone. All right, let me just remind you of the numbers to call, 630-9371, 630-9372, 630-9373, 630-9374, and our cell number is 618-8255. All right, Brian and Andrew, what new do you have for us today? What's happening?
Well, actually, it's a pretty big week for us at the embassy. On Friday, it's going to be the 4th of July,
yes,
which is a major U.S. holiday. It's also known as Independence Day. And
Independence! Wow!
Way back in 1776, it's when our founding fathers signed a document declaring the United States as a country sovereign. And so, it's actually quite a coincidence. I did a little bit of research into this.
Yes.
And it turns out that one of Jamaica's national heroes, Norman Manley, who's also a big democracy promoter, was born on the 4th of July
4th
as well.
Of July.
So quite the coincidence.
Yes, very interesting. So what is going to happen on that day? Give us an idea.
Well, traditionally in the United States, July 4th is a big holiday. It's a major holiday of the summer. It's marked by barbecues, family get-togethers, patriotic displays. Most jurisdictions throughout the country celebrate with a parade. And, of course, the big feature of the day when the sun goes down is the fireworks display.
Okay. And I'd love to be there, too. I'm sure you have your offices here will be closed, though.
The embassy will be closed on the 4th of July. That is correct. It's a U.S. holiday.
That's great. All right. So I should be heading to the States then.
Well, it's definitely an American experience. And if you're in a small town, there's a celebration. I'm not from a small town. I grew up in New York City, so our celebration in New York Harbor was quite impressive. But everywhere in the United States, July 4th, 1776 is commemorated, and the signing of the Declaration of Independence is the genesis for this major holiday.
Now, I don't know if you, gentlemen, you've been here when we are celebrating our independence, but I'm sure it must be much bigger in the United States. You want to give our listeners an idea as to what form it takes and what celebrations in the various states?
Well, at least where I grew up. So I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts.
Yes.
And so every year the Boston Symphony Orchestra performs along the Charles River, and they do a huge event, and there are fireworks going off as the orchestra
That's the part I like, the fireworks. That's the part I want to hear about. Yeah.
But I mean, everyone kind of does their own thing, but one of the big things is that everyone loves to barbecue. That's one of the big things. And so if everyone in Jamaica wants to get into the spirit, have a hot dog, have a hamburger on Friday, and everyone in the States will be doing the same.
And in New York, it's, of course, New York Harbor and waterways are very important to the life of the city. And last year I had the pleasure of watching the fireworks along the Hudson River and in New York Harbor, and it was a very, very impressive display indeed.
All right. Well, I probably can't make it this year, but I probably have to try and make it next year. All right, you're listening to At Your Service here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media. It's Ask the Consul, and we're taking your calls. So when we come back, you can give us a call. If you want to get information about going to the States or getting your visa, work permit, checking out your residential status, or, well, give us a call. Andrew, what's that?
This is the Stars and Stripes Forever.
Oh, it makes me feel like marching.
Yeah, I've got to sit down. I was just marching around the room. I would say that of all the patriotic songs that are played on the 4th of July, that's probably the one that is the most played and probably captures the spirit of the holiday more than any other.
That's July 4th.
Yes,
all
sir.
right, that's this Friday.
This Friday, yep.
All right. Hey, we have Keisha online. Good morning, Keisha. How are you doing?
Hi, morning, Brennan.
Good to have you, man.
And morning to the gentleman there from the embassy.
Brian
Morning,
and
Keisha.
Andrew.
Good morning, Keisha.
There's a slight problem. The station keep going in and out in the Upper St. Andrew area.
Mm-hmm. We know we just moved, and the technical persons, I think they are working on it. So, very sorry about that, but we are working hard, to get it all.
Man.
Yes.
Fully understand.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I have a little scenario to put before the consulates there. It all began in 2007. Hello?
Yeah, they're
We're
listening.
listening.
Yeah, man. Really.
Okay. All right. I got pregnant in 2007. However, my family, we had a family reunion. We went on a cruise to South America. However, upon reaching back to Miami, we went to New York. Going to New York, I was, probably five months plus pregnant. So when I reached to New York, I was in severe pain, due to fear of losing the child and miscarriage and all of that. My family and friends encouraged me and said, okay, see, and you can have the baby in New York. I stayed at the baby in New York. My husband came up. I was funded in terms of living arrangements. But for the hospital bill...
Guess what? I will ask you to make it a little quick for me because the board is full, you see?
Yes, man. All right. Yes, I had to get funding. Now, I've gone back to the embassy about 3 times. All my travels to the U.S. have been 3, 4, or 5 days because I worked with the airline previously. Now, on this one occasion, I stayed 5 months and a few weeks, right? Each time I go back to the embassy, they have denied. The 3rd time was last week. So I explained to the gentleman that all that took place. He was saying that, why didn't you say that you have a child in the U.S.? So he asked me about the doctor bill and all of that. So I had to get Medicaid. All right. He suggested that I pay the bill and come back to the embassy. Now, I'm saying if all my trips to the U.S. have been for 3 days or for 4 days, on this one occasion that I spent almost 6 months, I was given that time stamp in the passport. I'm saying, wouldn't there be some leniency towards the issuance of the visa or something? I operate a business in Jamaica.
All right, let her go ahead and let her go ahead and answer now. I want to take that one. Andrew or Brian will take that one.
Okay, in a case like that, I think the officer seemed to be focusing more on the fact that the child was born in the United States, which in and of itself is fine. And from what the way you're describing your situation, there was no overstay or no violation of your visa terms as you stayed in New York. But I think the officer was looking at the payment, the hospital payment for the birth of the child, and whether or not there was reimbursement to the hospital or the physician that handled the birth. I think the problem there is the fact that someone from another country came in and used medical services, which of course are there at your disposal in emergency situations. Nobody is going to let you suffer or endanger the life of your child. But after that, it becomes a question of whether the U.S. government paid for those services or a state government paid for those services or whether you and your family paid for those services. And I think that is what the officer was attempting to determine.
Okay, so prior to that, on the 2 other occasions that I came to the embassy, I did not bother to mention the situation with the pregnancy and all of that. They just said, okay, you're denied without no explanation, nothing at all.
Well, each time you come in for an interview, the officer who does interview you looks at a variety of things, a variety of facts. And when the officer works at the computer screen that you see the officer working at, there's a wealth of information that's available regarding your prior travel, regarding your employment, your background. And I certainly can't comment on individual interviews because I don't know the individual circumstances, but I can assure you that each interview is treated individually, and the officer is weighing as objectively as possible your set of circumstances before they make their determination.
Okay.
But, Brian, I don't know if you answered the question whether or not the medical bills were paid for.
No, I was told no, that I need to make the payments. I said, okay, fine, no problem. For sure, I'll try and get the information and make the payment. But what I'm saying is that in assessing the situation, I have all the ties, because I must commend the embassy. I've been there last week, and there are changes. You know, it's a little bit more friendlier, and, you know, the personal experience is not as horrid as before. Yeah? So you actually get to sit in a room and you can speak with one of the consulate and stuff like that. I really appreciate that.
I have to go now, but Brian, help us with that. My understanding is that if you have a child in the U.S. And you have not paid for the bill, that can stand against you. Is that so?
Yes, and apparently we do want to see that payment was made and that basically the U.S. taxpayers did not pick up the tab.
Mm-hmm.
So your advice is pay the bill and make another appointment to come back to the embassy, because I really want to take up my child. He wants to know where he's from.
Yes, you can reapply at any time, and I think that if the officer discussed that with you, that would be a very wise step to take at this point.
Okay.
All right. All the best. Take care.
Thank you.
We have no Chantal. Good morning, Chantal.
Hi, morning.
Good to have you. And where are you calling from? Which area?
I'm calling from Westmoreland.
Hey, that's what I was hoping. You know, long time I've heard from Westmoreland. I was in Westmoreland recently. Good to have you.
All right. So my question is, I recently went to the embassy. I did the application online, but what I didn't understand, I tried to ask a travel agent. So when I went, I was denied. I wasn't given any reason or anything. But I'm figuring that when I did the application and the area that asks for the salary, I wasn't sure if it was before or after taxes. So I asked a travel agent, what should I put there, if it's before or after, because we are charged tax. So I put before. When I went to the interview, the consulate asked me about my salary, because everything was going fine until she asked me about my salary. So I said to her, well, before, and she said, no, after taxes. So I said, okay, after taxes would be different from before, but I gave her the figure anyways. And I saw her body language, I could see that everything changed from there. So I didn't get a chance to probably explain or anything. She just gave me the paper, said it was denied. I emailed something on the website. I sent in an email explaining the situation.
I tell you what, I think Brian, you want to take that one?
Yes. Hi, Chantal. How are you doing?
Hi.
So, in every visa application that we take, no one thing determines whether someone qualifies or doesn't qualify. We take a look of the whole applicant. And so, in your case, I'm sure when the officer was adjudicating, it's not one minor issue or just your income that comes into play. They're looking kind of at your professional experience, what your family situation, things like that are right then. But to your point about filling out your online application, things like that, we do encourage that people make sure that they know what's on there. And when they work with travel agents and things like that, I just want to let everyone know, make sure that all your information is correct, double check it, triple check it, and make sure that it's accurate too, because we've had issues with that in the past where travel agents don't necessarily hear the correct thing and they put something different than what the applicant tells us, and it takes time to clear that kind of stuff up too. So make sure you just double check what's on your application.
Yeah, but is there not an area where I can explain my situation or even an appeal to the denial, because she just shut me down, and I'm really telling you, it's not a wonderful feeling just being given a green paper and no explanation at all.
I'm sorry to hear that you're disappointed. I'll tell you that all adjudications are reviewed by supervisors as well. If you have a more detailed kind of concern or things like that, you can always email us at kingstoniv@state.gov, and we can look into it. But I can tell you, we give everyone the full consideration. Everything is checked 2-3 times at a supervisor level, and so we do the best we can.
But Andrew, when it comes to salary, your salary is your salary. It's not before or after tax. The salary is what is paid to you.
I think what I'd just like to add on a little bit to what Andrew said and then address the salary question.
Yes.
When a travel agent or somebody else does fill out your application, it's very, very important that you double check the information because that application is seen by the interviewing officer, and that officer is assimilating and sort of gathering a lot of information off that application as the interview is conducted. When you are asked about salary, and this is for the advice of all the listeners, just be sure that you differentiate between before tax and after tax. But the point that I'd really like to make is that it's very, very important for you to double check that information because it's your information and you don't want to leave it in the hands of someone else to put together for you.
Right, because when I asked her, she
No, I think you have hello. What you do, you're going to the details of what happened. I think he has answered you. The only thing I think you're probably not sure about is the salary. When you get your salary, my understanding, and you probably can double check that, your salary is what you receive at the end of the month. They want that. You can help me. Do you need to know whether it's after or before tax, gentlemen?
In general, we usually ask what people make after tax because it gives us a better sense of their current situation.
Is it stated on the form?
It's actually
no, it's not.
It's not stated on the form,
and
so we do clarify that. And so, and this is for all applicants. When you come in and we ask you that question, in general, I'd say that we are asking for your after tax.
Probably we should indicate that on the form then that the salary is before after tax. Because if they don't put that and they misunderstand, then they would give a different salary. If you double check, no, then it could come across as if they are misleading you.
Yeah, unfortunately, the form
if
is
we're
actually,
liars or something.
Of course, but so unfortunately, the form is actually standardized across the world, and so the tax situation across the world changes. So that language doesn't necessarily always make sense depending on where you are.
All right. Thank you very much, caller. All the best. Let's go to now Tiffany. Tiffany, good morning.
Good morning.
to have you.
Good morning to you, Mr. Darby and your guests.
Good to have you. We have Brad and Andrew.
The problem is, a friend of mine asked me to call. She made an application online. Well, somebody
why she couldn't? She wasn't able to call because it's best when the person call in and get the answers directly, rather than you calling and then getting the information second hand.
Oh no, she's not available to do so.
Is she listening?
No, she's not.
All right, go ahead then.
Okay, somebody assisted her in making an application for a date at the embassy, but when she got back the information, one of her names on the form was incorrect. So instead of saying like Veronica, she put Verona. So what she wants to find out if there's any way of her correcting that error before she comes to the interview.
You follow? Where's the incorrect? Where was it? I'm not sure I'm following you.
In completing the application form?
Yes.
Like the person named Verona Darby, they put Veronica Darby.
Now, but who filled out the form?
A friend of her assisted. But she didn't have access to a computer.
Yep, that's a very good question. The best thing that she can probably do is send us a note at kingstoniv@state.gov, just to clarify the name situation, and then also just for her when she comes in for an appointment, to let the consular officer know when her interview comes up. It is possible if she goes back to the same website that she registered on, she might be able to change it, but to be perfectly honest, that part of the system...
No, it's not working because I looked at it myself and it did not offer that option.
So her best option is definitely to send us a note to make sure that we get the correct information in there. And I can tell you that these kind of mistakes do happen, and we catch them and we can fix them. So
Okay, and it's Kingston NIV?
Yep, Kingston NIV at state.gov.
Okay.
At
At state, STATE.gov.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Have a good day.
You're
That's
welcome.
why, gentlemen, you understand why I ask persons to call for themselves. Same thing if you ask somebody to complete the form for you online. You should be there so that you can verify it. Am I
Exactly.
correct?
Yep, definitely.
Because if you're not there and they put information which is incorrect, then you go to the embassy and you give different information, then that wouldn't that
it definitely makes things more difficult.
Okay.
It does, and so it's very important to double-check that information before the form is submitted, because once it is, it becomes a lot more difficult to make those corrections.
All right. Let's take another call before we go for the break. All right. Andrea is on the line. Good morning, Andrea. How are you doing? Good to have you. Where are you calling from?
Kingston, Mr. Darby. Good morning to
How are
you.
you doing? Good to have you.
Yes, last week I went to the embassy. I had a 10-year visa 10 years ago. I was having some situation at home, so I went to England. I spent 5 months, and then I went across to the U.S. and spent 5 months, which I didn't know I wasn't supposed to spend that amount of time at the time. So when I went to the embassy last week, the counselor, she was there. She questioned me, asked me about my brother in the State, how he reached there, everything about his business. And I took my business license, my house title. At the end of it, she asked me who, if I was married or if I lived with anyone. I said no. The lady at the end of the interview, she said, I can't give you the visa because you're not married and you're not going to come back. So I just want to know what is up with that.
Well, in the course of the interview, the officer is determining whether or not your application and your travel intentions fit within U.S. law. And it's very important for the consular officer to be convinced that you indeed have very strong ties to Jamaica, and that, or to any home country for that matter, and that you are going to return to your home country based on your ties to the country. In other words, what I'm getting at is that a B1, B2 visa, which is a tourist visa, yes, it's good for 10 years, and we're certainly happy to have you travel to and from the United States in compliance with U.S. law, but it is very important for applicants to convince the consular officer that their ties to their home country are stronger than their ties to the United States, and that the likelihood is that you're going to return to your home country.
Yes, but I have a business here. I have my house here. I rent a part of my house, and I have a business otherwise. So I wouldn't run away and leave it.
Well, as we've said along the way here, that we try to view every interview as objectively as possible, or the facts that are presented at the interview as objectively as possible, and an officer is going to make a decision based on his or her impression of what you've told them and whether or not it complies with U.S. immigration law, as I've explained.
All right. We have to leave you. Thank you very much for calling. All right, you're listening to At Your Service here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media. It's Ask the Consul, and of course we have two consular officers here from the United States Embassy, Brian Jandorf and Andrew Chira. Gentlemen, really good to have you again, giving our listeners information not only in Jamaica, but right across the world. All right, we have Keisha on the line. Good morning, Keisha. How are you?
Hi, morning, Vernon.
Why, you sound so bright. Why I wish I'd feel like you this morning. How you do?
Once you have life, you know, it's good and well.
Exactly.
Right. I have two questions for the consul. One, if it is that it is against the U.S. law to say overstay, right? What do you consider as overstay? Overstay wouldn't be the allotted time given and you stay after that, right? Why the U.S. Immigration know that they don't want you to stay beyond like 2 weeks? Why stamp 6 months in somebody's book?
All right, you want to take that one, Brad?
Certainly. Hi, Keisha. How are you?
Not bad.
That's good. I'm good, too. Your question is this. I just want to explain a little bit for the benefit of everyone that's listening that a visa is really a permission to travel from your home country to the port of entry. So whether you go to JFK, if you go to Fort Lauderdale, if you go to Miami, all the visa is allowing you to do is to travel from Jamaica to that port of entry. And then when you meet the nice people in the dark uniforms who stand in the booths, who represent Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, they are actually the people who are admitting you to the country. And when they admit you, they'll stamp your passport and generally give you permission to enter the country for a 6-month stay. And as long as you're within that 6 months, you're in compliance with immigration law. If you go over that 6 months, then you are no longer in compliance with the law. And just because you are allowed to go in for 6 months doesn't necessarily mean that every time you travel to the U.S. that you should stay that length of time, because remember that what you're getting is a non-immigrant visa, and it's primarily designed for short visits with the opportunity to stay 6 months now and again if you have to. But anything beyond that is an overstay, and that is a violation of the law.
Okay, understood clearly. My next question quickly is, when we pay for this visa, because the truth and fact is that Jamaicans love to travel. Jamaicans love to go to foreign. And we love to buy barrels and barrels and stocks and ships of stuff to send back home.
Oh, yes.
But the thing is, when you come to the embassy, yes, there are some that want to travel for the purpose of the shopping and visiting and all of that. There are some that want to run off. Why is it that there isn't a system that says, okay, you have paid, you have not gotten the visa. Why don't you give us back half of the money, or it is laid up for another time when you can come back, like as a credit towards an account then.
And before you answer, I can tell you, you need to listen to this program more often.
I'm listening up, but sometimes, you know, the work,
I know. They're going to answer right now.
So, Keisha, this comes up all the time. And so the fee that everyone pays is not a fee to get a visa. The fee is a visa processing fee. And so what that pays for is our ability to have an embassy in your country, the staff that works there, the guards that work outside, and that's what the fee actually goes into. It has nothing to do with whether or not you actually receive the visa.
As one of my mentors in the Foreign Service when I came in told me, it's payment for an interview. It's payment for the opportunity to interview to get the visa. It's not a payment for the visa itself. And so whether or not you get a visa on a particular day will depend on how the officer views the facts presented at the interview.
You understand that now?
I have challenge in accepting that, but it is quite a
hold on. What I said, you know, that when you go to the office, the air conditioning is on, the lights are on, the guy come and talk to you and say, hi, how are you? All that, you know, the computer systems there. So what they're saying, they have to pay for all of that. Am I right, gentlemen?
That's right.
Quick question now, Vernon. Sometimes when you go and you're speaking to the consulate, you go with your bank statement, you go with everything that to prove that you're not going to run off. And the consulate tell you flat out, no, I don't want to see it.
All right.
Well, so, Keisha, in that case, it's good to have all those materials. And I can tell you that, personally, I ask for those materials all the time. But in each individual case, as you've been there, you can see that it's a long line. We don't have time to look at every single document that's given to us. And so it's good to have. The officer will take all the information they can at that time to make a decision as quickly as they can. But we don't always need to see every document that you bring in.
All right. Have to leave, you see. Have a good day, see. All the best. All right, let's go now to Tashana. Tashana, good morning. Tashana.
Hi, good morning.
How are you doing? You have about 3 minutes.
Okay, my question is this. I was granted a visa, a one-entry visa in 2008 as a nanny. And when I went back in 2009 to renew it, I was turned down. I'm asking the question, what could have made me not be able to get back a renewal?
Okay, so you were traveling with your boss in 2008, is that correct, Shoshana?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and then in 2009 you wanted to travel with your boss again?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So one thing that this falls into a domestic helper category of visas, and so one thing that we want to make sure everyone who's in that situation brings in is also a contract letter that's signed by not only the applicant but by their boss also, because essentially you'll be working in the U.S. and as a result you'll have to adhere to U.S. labor laws as well. And so that's something
I had brought in my job letter and everything that was required from the first interview, and I was just told that I was denied. So I was wondering what had changed since.
When you came in for your second interview, obviously you successfully obtained your domestic visa the first time and traveled with your boss. When you came in for your second interview, were you applying for the same kind of visa, or were you applying for a regular 10-year visitor visa?
It was the same visa I was applying for, the same B1/B2.
Okay. Well, when you got your domestic visa, it was not a B1, B2. It was a B1 visa, which required you to prove that you were employed by your employer for a certain length of time, that your employer and you agreed on a contract that meets U.S. Department of Justice standards with respect to minimum wages. You were given a pamphlet that explains your rights when you work in the U.S. That's one particular kind of visa. And when you came in for your B1, B2 visa at a later time, that's a completely different set of circumstances, which requires a different type of interview, and the officer will make his or her decision based on that second type of visa.
Okay, so my question again, so if I was to apply back, because I still work with the same persons.
Okay.
So if I was to apply back to travel with them, would I be able to get it back as a domestic helper, because I still work with them and I still like to travel with them?
The only way to find out is to register for an appointment and come in and meet with the consular officer.
All right.
And I can tell you that I know that.
Okay, thank you very much for calling. Let's go now to Fitz. Good morning, Fitz. Good to have you.
Hello?
Fitz, are you there? Yeah, good morning. Good to have you.
Good morning, Mr. Darby.
Good to have you, man.
In 1994 I think 94, I was at a store working downtown. I work with a permanent company, and I was told by my supervisor to come to the office about 1 o'clock. He escorted me there. So when I got there, I saw 2 police and 2 counts inside the immigration officer, who at the time said to me that they were investigating me of collecting visa from the unit, from the embassy, and selling it, which I didn't have a clue or anything to do with. So when they said to me that, the policeman said to me that we were going down to the Constant Spring police station, so we went down there. We spent some time there, investigate, ask questions, and about 7 o'clock, went down there about 1 o'clock. At about 7 o'clock, I went to, then send me, so I can go home, and return back to my office by 6 o'clock in the morning. I said, I will reach there by 5:30, yeah. Anyway, I reached there by 5:15.
No, listen, you're making that, you have to shorten that story, man. You have to go to the break. So, what's the real challenge?
But what I'm saying, I don't know if anything did put up my name, because I went to the embassy 5 times. My wife has visa, my son, my daughter have, and 4 of us in the house. And only me don't get any visa, so I don't know if anything did put up my name on the computer there.
But were you charged and convicted by the courts?
No, I didn't go. Everything was investigated and everything. Nothing didn't come up now, nothing, because I work in same place at the same company, everything.
Okay, so you didn't go to court. You didn't have to go to court at all.
Nothing at all. Them just tell me that I can go to the office and then go back to work. Nothing at all.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that my wife has visa, my son.
No,
visa,
that's a different thing. Let's let the officers answer.
Right.
Okay. Andrew, you want to take that one?
Sure. It sounds like an interesting situation, sir. Sorry to...
Hello?
So, sir, the one thing that I would tell you that is, as we said before, we look at each case individually, and I don't know the particulars of your situation right now, so I can't tell you one way or the other in terms of what that investigation, whether that's affecting anything or not. But given that is something that you are associated with in the past, I'd make sure to bring it up to the officer whenever you come in and apply again, first thing. And if you have any kind of documents from the police showing that they never charged you with anything like that, that will be useful to just help clear the situation up. But we'll look at your case every time that you apply at that circumstance. And if your wife has traveled and your children have traveled, you're welcome to bring in their passports as well. That's usually a good indicator for us about how a family travels too.
Listen, listeners,
we'll have to figure out a way to get that in.
Listeners, let me tell you, it's a pity we can't play this on air. But we are having fun in the studios here with Brad Jandorf and Andrew Chiro, consular officers at the U.S. Embassy. We're telling them about Obiaman. And they interpreted, is it Brad who said, no, it's not a new commando. Well, okay, we have another caller. Okay, but before we close, just to make it very clear that when you're getting these forms filled out, let me know if I'm correct. If it's an online form, you should make sure you're probably there with the person, because if you allow somebody to fill out that form online and you're not aware of what's inputted, then you go to the embassy, and you give them different information that probably might create a challenge.
And one other thing, just for the convenience of all our listeners,
yes.
Obviously everyone who's been down there knows that the waiting area can get quite crowded. And so when you see a time on your form, just keep in mind that that's an arrival time, and you want to get to the embassy at that time. That's not your appointment time. So getting to the embassy at your appointed arrival time will actually speed up the process for you and for everyone else, and make the waiting area a little bit more comfortable as you wait for your interview.
So, should not be late. Should be on time. You know, we have a way sometimes, if you tell us to be there at 5 o'clock, you actually mean 6 o'clock. But that song we had at the beginning, I just love it. What's the name of that song?
It's The Stars and Stripes Forever,
the
and
stars,
it's composed
no,
The Stars,
for me.
The Stars and Stripes Forever.
The Stars and Stripes
And
Forever.
it was composed by John Philip Sousa, who was an American composer who wrote many, many patriotic marches that are very, very well known around the world.
So why was that song selected? I just love it. It has a sort of marching thing to it. I just love it. I love it. That march. Is it so they just selected that as a particular song for the U.S., or it just became very popular? And
it's one of Sousa's marches. It's very popular, and as I mentioned earlier, it's when I think of the 4th of July and I think of music, I think of The Stars and Stripes Forever.
Yeah.
Now, excuse me, I have to get up and march.
You're not going to march out of me, though. I love it. I love it. Right. So I want to say thank you very much, Brian Jandorf and Andrew Chira. Andrew Chira.